Hi, this is Doug, and thank you so much for downloading this episode of Radio Juxtapoz. If this is your first time tuning in, this is a good one. In this episode, my co-host Evan and I are in conversation with the Australian director Selina Miles. Selina has spent the last 2 years following the graffiti photography legend that is Martha Cooper around and is about to showcase her first feature-length documentary. If you want to get straight into the interview, jump forward to about minute 16. Otherwise, you can spend a couple of minutes listening to me and Evan navigate our way through, well, everything from Picasso to Brexit. If you enjoy this episode, make sure you subscribe to the channel.
Have you gained your Norwegian citizenship yet?
I love Norway. I just love it. I went to the shop and I bought a 6-pack of beer and it cost me £30. That's like $40 for 6 beers from a store.
Yeah, but like the funny thing about it is that we're always told when we go there that like everybody drinks all the time there. I mean, how does that work? Why didn't you just duty free? Because you're there too long?
I didn't think of that until you said it there. I'm an amateur. The amount I travel, I should be more equipped for this.
I never do any duty free because for some reason it just always makes me nervous when I'm going through like duty free. I feel uncomfortable every time.
Oh, that's the gauntlet, man. And they make it so windy. They make it so hard for you to get through every single airport.
And there's like always like some very irrational things that they like are offering you. Like I want to know who are the people that buy like perfume and cologne at the duty free.
People just love buying stuff. They're like, I'm flying from here to another place. I need to stock up on stuff.
Why doesn't Nike or one of these sneaker brands just like start doing limited edition duty free drops? That would be so impressive.
Coming 2023 Nike limited edition duty free drops.
The off-white duty free Stavanger Airport edition.
Bang. Where are you? You're back home.
I'm still in San Francisco, man. I go to Paris next week on a little mini vacation.
An actual vacation? Like a holiday? Like a non-art based function?
No, it's definitely going to be art based, but I'm going to just take it on my own leisure, if you will.
What's going on in Paris? Is there things afoot?
Well, the one thing I definitely want to check out is JR's doing that big project at the Louvre. That kind of seems like quite impressive, and I just think if any artist who started out in street art is doing something at the Louvre, they must be doing something right.
He loves that. He loves that Louvre.
When's the last time you've been to the Louvre, by the way?
A couple of years.
I still enjoy it.
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, I'm just saying like it's one of the few museums where I feel like I'm, it's like you're in Jurassic Park. You just like, it's like, okay, like this is like, I should prep myself for this.
Yeah. I mean, it's the giddiness of it all.
Yeah. Right. The giddiness. We're definitely talking to an art audience. I get very giddy in the Louvre. And I'm not one of those people that gets like unimpressed by the Mona Lisa. Like I think the size of it is just fine.
You can tell you do reviews. Mona Lisa, well, the size isn't that bad. It's all right. It's adequate for a classic.
But that, those are the important things to note to people who get disappointed when they see. Have you ever been disappointed by a major piece of art? It's like I think this is a vital question. Have you ever been disappointed by the size of a particular famous piece of art? Starry Night's not that big, but it's still impressive.
Yeah, I think anything by Cause is just a little too big. I wish he would take a little something out the old masters. Just dial it back down a little bit.
Be like, you've got something floating in the Hong Kong harbor at the moment. If it was just a little bit for a bathtub, it'd be just fine for me.
Just like a big rubber duck. Just like a slightly bigger sized rubber duck. That would be perfect.
On the inverse of this weird conversation, the most impressive piece of art I feel like I had seen so many pictures of and then saw it in person was Guernica by Picasso. I had to clarify.
Yeah, you did.
By this Spanish artist, Pablo Picasso.
I like what he's doing at the moment.
He's hot. Do you know that he's one of the guys who does sculpture too, correct?
I'm just waiting to see what he does next year. I think he's really going to come into his own.
No, I was impressed by the sheer scale of it. I thought that was really impressive.
I haven't seen it.
How is Brexit going for you?
Oh, man. You just... knife in the back.
It's not knife in the back, man, because it's not going well for us here. So I just like to double check. I like to double check with people, like where they're at with their countries. No one's happy with their countries. Like what nation's happy with their? I'm sure the Norwegians don't like their prime minister at the moment.
I think the Norwegians are just happy about everything. They're just middle of the road. Not upset. Actually, no, they are upset. Sorry, I take that back. The Norwegians are livid at the moment. Except it's mainly the young children, and they are leading the charge in climate change. Big up yourselves, Norway. They got kids,
that's cool.
Kids taking off school, protesting in the middle of the streets. Adults are like, we've got it kind of good. But the kids are like, actually, bigger picture here, guys. Bigger picture. Planet gonna end.
But it's interesting. Like certain countries probably won't have their like Paris in the streets of 1968 moment, will they?
I couldn't see Norway doing that.
Yeah, I always wonder, like these countries that are progressive socially, like what protest looks like in those places.
Oh, they go through the official channels, Evan.
Organized chaos. Got it.
Oh, more bureaucracy. That's the key to social democracy.
I would like to say, Doug, a very good pick for the guest on the podcast this week. I thought that was a very good idea.
Man, I was super excited to get Selina Miles on the podcast this episode. As a filmmaker, I've absolutely loved watching Selina's work over the years. She's continued to kind of reinvent herself and move forward and push boundaries. And when I found out last year she was in the middle of making a documentary about Martha Cooper, I could not be more excited for this partnership. So for me personally, this was a real highlight and a chance to kind of like learn more about what inevitably will become a key piece of film in the timeline and the history of this, street art, urban art scene.
What was really fascinating to me is that kind of conversation before I bounced early, and I really apologize for that. But
So we actually recorded with Selina yesterday, and this is the day after when Evan has a little bit more time to record.
Yeah. I really just like that discussion about creating something of a certain kind of length and a certain kind of a it's like there's a dedication to making a feature that is so kind of rare because we're so used to quick blips and episodic content now that it's so nice that she's treating kind of the glue that keeps all these scenes together in a longer format. It's kind of it's just nice to hear about that process and what she had to do to kind of change up her comfort zone in order to make it full length. I thought that was really nice and interesting part of not just the fact that Martha Cooper is the subject, but just the actual craft of putting together a documentary. I thought that was cool.
And the ability to switch, because she kind of, she was in a position where she had managed when in 2013 when she dropped this hyperlapse video that went crazy viral of a bunch of artists painting over a warehouse over like 2 weeks. And it just kind of completely changed the game in terms of visual output. That was just so tailor-made to the short attention span that our generation is becoming aware of and known for. And then to switch from that short form punch into something so much longer was a real flex. And I think, from the sounds of things, she's got a real story there.
Yeah, and I use her profile on Felipe Pantone as like the example I use of like a great art profile on one artist. Like I thought that was so unique and so well done. And she's kind of the cream of the crop at the moment at doing these things, and it's just so fascinating that she's now doing
has been for the last she's just been continuously getting better and better.
Now you as someone who makes films and short films, do you Do you have a desire personally to make a longer format type, not necessarily a documentary, but do you see it in yourself of doing kind of a longer format piece?
Yeah, I mean, because I do the vlog side of things. So the Instagram is you just have such a limited amount of scope of what you can really go into in depth in terms of topic. And with the kind of the YouTube side of the vlog, it's like I love being able to go and interview people, really get to know an area, get to know a subject, get to poke away at something, and then you end up with something that's closer to 10 minutes, 15 minutes. For me, it will probably be more of a gradual build or a wait till I find that story, I find my Martha, and then it'll come. But yeah, I've always kind of been more drawn towards the longer form. I think it's more, it's just got more longevity for me. You can make something for 30 seconds that is visual, it'll come and it'll go, and it'll be forgotten in a click of a fingers. But you want something that people are going to have kind of buried in their heads. You want those moments.
Right. Actually, I thought the short that you made on Flem and Flem's new show was really well done. I enjoyed watching that. I thought that was a good way of telling that particular story about that particular project. I thought you did a very nice job on that, to compliment you on your own podcast.
Oh, I'll take that.
Was that kind of like, that was a quite, I mean, not to switch gears, but that was a quite impressive show.
That was a hell of a show. Hell of a show. I was super excited for it just because I'd been speaking with Flem in the run-up, and he just kept sending me these little photos of him working. And it was like him on a harness up this like old abandoned warehouse, this old factory that was used to make knives. And he's like sitting there, just on his own, surrounded by this sort of like wooden structure. And I was like, this is going to bang. This is going to be something different. For me, it was the best show the UK has seen since Dismaland.
Oh, wow. That's a cool declaration. And from the photos, it looked like something mega and special. I wish I could make it over to see it. It just looked so cool.
Yeah, and that's what the video's there for, is to bridge that gap, just to give a different angle on something.
And you got really good, and I thought it was nice, you got really good responses from people who were just at the show, which to me is always like a really nice gauge of kind of like the local impact that these things have. Because I think because of Instagram and all that stuff, it becomes so global, like instantaneously, that sometimes you forget that like the residents who are seeing it, that tends to be the most important audience.
Especially when you get to jump out of an area like London, like SF, like New York, where people are just kind of used to it, and that the audience is going to be in some way kind of like, with these bigger cities, there's an element of, oh, impress me. I have 1,000,001 things that I could be doing tonight. I need you to impress me. In an area of a smaller nature like Sheffield or Manchester or even Glasgow, it's like, yes, you've brought this here. We are grateful, and we want more of this. Like, how can we get more of this here? And I really like that kind of thirst for it.
Yeah, and there is something very impressive about an artist who works on the smallest of scale, then also just blowing that up to larger than life size. I think that's really cool too.
His ability to switch that is, I think it's like, it's kind of unmatched, and literally just etchings on this, something the size of a matchstick, to huge silos, all over the world, and then to these huge monsters. So yeah, it was a huge show from Flem, and I really do like his ethos, the way he does things. It wasn't like, he hasn't. I don't think he's ever done a canvas. I don't know when the last time he did a canvas was. A Flem show is always different. So, God knows where he goes from this.
Between Flem and like Blue, like those are people I know will never get on the podcast because that's not their thing. But I'm just constantly impressed by their output and what they do. And I like the fact that there's a mystery around the whole entire thing.
We did ask Flem if he wanted to come on the pod, and he laughed. He just said no, but you can come up to the opening if you want.
It's nice that we've kind of kicked off 2019, and there's been some really good things that have kind of happened, some good projects that have happened. And I mean, it's from the range of phlegm in Sheffield to cause floating a huge thing in a harbor in the, one of the most important cities in the world. It's amazing. There's just things happening.
And there's one more thing happening in May. End of April, May, Tribeca Film Festival. Our guest on today's... Did I ever tell you about the time I met Selina?
I know it was in Berlin, Urban Nation. Is that what... Did you fan out?
She doesn't know this story. And she may hear this, but it was that night that we were at the Urban Nation Museum opening, and I was late. I was meeting you, and we were all going to have dinner. And I come into dinner, and you're sitting down next to Martha Cooper and Ron English holding court. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I was like, Evan, move down. You're like, no, man, I'm in the middle of the thing. You're like, just go sit down there. I was like, I don't want to sit down there at that end of the table. I don't know anyone there. And there was just a girl sitting at the end with her camera, just kind of like messing around. I was like, hi, how are you? I was asked her what she was doing. She was like, oh yeah, I'm filming with Martha. She's like, what do you do? And I was like, well, I'm a filmmaker as well. I just came back from Palestine. If you want any hints and tips, I'll be sure to give you some pointers. And then it was Lister came over and just went, oh, hey, Selina, I haven't seen you in ages. And my face went white. I was like, shit, that was Selina. Ah, damn it. And I never told her that story. So Selina, if you're listening to this, first half of our entire time together, no idea. And then as soon as I found out who you were, I fanboyed hard.
Another tip on the podcast, Berlin's a fun city.
Berlin is a great city. So, Evan, we've just talked for 20 minutes and Selina fans are sitting here going, where the hell is our girl? Well, here she is.
Yeah, this is a good one. Enjoy the conversation with Selina Miles.
Oh, nice casual branding in the background there, Selina.
Oh, yeah. That's not actually the poster. We definitely can't show that because Martha hates that poster.
Okay. I like that she hates it, but you've still got it on the wall.
Yeah, totally. I like it.
Take that, Martha. So this is without a doubt the most international episode we've done yet. I'm in Norway. Evan, you are?
San Francisco, California.
And our guest today, Selina Miles, is?
I'm in Sydney, Australia.
I'm actually really proud of us for being this organized and like all of us just coordinating. This is like truly global. I'm very proud.
This is like time zone madness. Selina, you just sent me a couple of little audio tests. What's the deal with the names of these clips? You sent me one called The Promenade Dance Studio 6 and one called Stephen J. Miller and Co.
Yeah, this is a new feature on like voice memos on the iPhone, is that it very creepily looks at your location, finds the closest business, and then names your voice memo that business.
Oh, wow.
What?
So I've also just disclosed your location to all the listeners.
Why do they keep doing this to us? We're not asking for this. Why do they keep doing this? I don't want it.
I was just really impressed that you were like, we're trying to quickly, rush to get the pod started, and you're like coming up with these elaborate names. I was like, wow, she's creative to the core. That is fine detail if ever I saw it.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I'm not that creative this time in the morning.
Actually, what time is it? It's 8 in the morning?
8:15, yeah.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank
you. So
you
you just got back to Australia from New York. What was going down for you in New York?
I was in New York for a final trip to screen the documentary that I've been working on to its subject, Martha Cooper, and some of her friends and contributors. And and have just come back to Sydney to finish off the documentary and then back to New York in less than a month to premiere it at Tribeca.
How does that feel?
It's right now it feels kind of reached this state of strange calm because we're so close to the end that it's just like you just got to do as many hours as you can and it will be what it's going to be, and there's nothing else that can really be done except just like lots and lots and lots of hours at the computer. It's been going on for 2 years, so to get to this point is a strange relief. It's not over, but it's past the point of having to make big decisions, basically.
There is an end in sight.
Yes, exactly. Very, very close.
Does showing it to the actual subject cause an extra stress just in case like they go, nah, You need to change this, and you're just like, whoa, come on. Like, is there like a little bit of that like last second, stress?
Yeah, it's I think it's probably one of the most challenging hurdles in making a documentary from my experience. This is my first time doing this, but speaking to other directors and my producer who's done a bunch of these, especially for me because I'm so close to my subject, you know, it's she's a friend, she's someone that I mean, I don't know how you could work like this with someone for years and not get close with them, but um and it is a constant battle to have to, you know, sort of mediate between your desire to please the person and your desire to make a good film. Um, and yeah, and it's scary. It is scary because it's also creepy. I mean, I've been like digging up footage from the 80s that she's never seen of her and her friends, and like it's, you know, it's like this person comes into your life and like makes a story about your life and you have to watch it. And yeah, so it was terrifying.
How do you find striking that balance then? Have there been any kind of like internal moments for you of portraying an accurate representation of this person, but then also kind of, you know, your natural instinct to kind of safeguard your friend?
Constant. It's not just the subject, it's everybody in the film. It's yeah, it's a responsibility, you know. And I had someone put it really well to me. They said a documentary is a painting, not a photograph. You know, there's no such thing as truth in, especially in film, because it's all like, I mean, the story is created by, you know, the combination of disparate elements, and that's completely up to me. So it is my responsibility, and it's my choice about what I say and how I say it. So it's yeah, it's there's been some like nights of staring at the ceiling being like, oh my gosh, what if everyone hates it, or what if I offend somebody, or what if it sucks, or and yeah, you have to kind of balance all those things. So
So was that the first time that she had seen it?
yes, she hadn't seen a single thing. No one had.
Nobody had.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she's very trusting, you know, and we had a lot of discussions beforehand about editorial privilege. And um, the good thing is that Martha has worked for years and years as a documentary photographer and worked for magazines, and she worked for National Geographic. She's worked for newspapers, so she knows how it all works. So she wasn't anxious. I mean, I think she was just trusting me to do the best job that I could. So that was really good. But yeah, it's still scary. And like one of her closest friends, who's also in the film, is Susan Welchman, who was the photo editor of National Geographic for 35 years, and she was in the audience. You know, and it's like people who have been editing images their entire lives watching this thing that I made. So that was a little scary, but yeah.
Did you ever at any point talk to other filmmakers who had made documentaries? I assume when it's you're dealing with a subject who's still alive and still doing work and still active, like the story is ongoing, like other documentary filmmakers who may have had to deal with subjects who have passed on, like was there any tips of like, okay, this person's career is still going, this is how you approach a certain documentary feature if you're dealing with a subject who's like gonna go on and continue to make work? Is there a different balance and tips that you might have gotten along the way?
Um, None of my kind of mentors on this project or people that I've spoken to have made documentaries about like biopic sort of documentaries about people that aren't around anymore. So, I mean, it would have been great to get that advice, but it definitely is like a natural kind of compulsion to when you're trying to find the ending of a story.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the things that we talked about when we talk about legacy, and if you put them in the wrong order and you overdo it, it can feel like you're kind of eulogizing this person who's like very much still like working and alive and
Yeah.
to continue long into the future. So it's like it has been a thing of like, oh, okay, we probably shouldn't say that there. And just finding that balance, you know, because yeah, like Martha is still like in she's still working, but she also has a legacy, so it is a weird thing. So yeah, but no, I mean no, I didn't get that advice. I mean, my main mentor on this project is Jennifer Peterm. She's a director who's made a documentary called Sherpa and another one called Mountain. She's into like rock climbing and mountain climbing, and she was really helpful in that every time that I like complained to her, I'd be like, oh, it's so hard, and this is so hard and that's so hard. And, oh, Martha doesn't like this thing that I'm doing and we're arguing about this. And Jen would say, Selina, my subjects were Sherpa, who didn't speak English, who lived on Mount Everest, who had just lost 16 of their friends in an avalanche. Like, that's your job.
Right. Martha lives on the Upper West Side. So it's like there's a little there's
a really cool person. So yeah, it's this has actually been pretty easy as far as documentaries go, I think, judging by what other people have told me.
So I guess I want to wheel it back then. How did this come to be? What was the plan?
It was a complete accident because I'd never made anything longer than about 10 or 15 minutes. I'd done a series of 6 10-minute episodes of an arts series with the ABC in Australia. But I remember before I did this project, I was like, I could never do a feature. That's too hard, or I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. And I'd planned to make something 10 minutes long, and I went to New York and started shooting. And the first person I spoke to was Susan Welchman, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people are amazing, and Martha like gave me a key to her apartment and was like, here's my stuff. And she's got like these like original slides of the night that she went out with Dondi, to shoot him painting a whole car in like 81, I think it was. And I was just nerding out so fucking hard. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do here, but I took it all home and I was like, this deserves more than 10 minutes. So that was basically how it started. And then just through friends, I was introduced to Daniel Joyce, who's my producer, who has made a bunch of great documentaries and has really helped me immensely in getting this thing to exist and sort of teaching me how to make films, basically. So it's been kind of like a boot camp for me.
Yeah, just kind of sink or swim in that one. You must have had some pretty moments because you're kind of interwoven now in the fabric of this scene. Did you have moments when you were out with Martha where you do like properly fangirl?
Yeah. I think the one that most comes to mind is being in Berlin. And I'd gone over there to shoot the opening of this museum. I think that's where we met, Doug.
That's exactly where we met.
Wait, is this all the same? This is the museum that we can say it by name.
Yeah, we can say. I don't know. I just don't.
Okay.
Sometimes people don't say the names, and I'm like, are we doing that on purpose? What game are we playing right now? I don't know.
Yeah.
To like advertise things if I'm not supposed to. Anyway.
The Urban Nation Museum.
Urban Nation Museum.
Urban Nation Museum in.
Oh, there we go. We got 3. Have that, Yasha.
Oh, sorry, I just totally cooked it.
Oh man.
We were there, and one night I went out. Martha was shooting the One Up crew for the book project that she was doing with them, and so it was someone loaned us a car. So I'm driving. Martha's in the passenger seat. These One Up crew guys are in the back that I've never met before, and we're like driving through into some weird off the highway forest situation in the middle of nowhere in Germany. And next thing I'm in this dark forest with these guys and I'm filming Martha shooting these guys. And it was just like, oh my God, this is just so hilariously cool. I don't know. I just think it's amazing watching her in action. It was just like the best footage I've ever gotten in my life, I think. I remember saying that at the end of that. I was like, that's the best footage I've ever gotten.
Martha Cooper's she's not a spring chicken. She's a lady of a certain age.
Yeah.
And she's still as active as ever in this. Do you ever have to kind of pinch yourself and remind that this is a 70-year-old?
Not even that, but she still has the enthusiasm for it. It's not even, it's the energy, but also she's into it still.
That's the thing.
So impressive.
It's not so much the age thing. I learned very quickly not to treat her any differently because she's older. She doesn't like that and she doesn't need it. I hate being patronized, someone being like, oh, let me carry your bags for you. It used to happen because I was a girl. It doesn't happen so much anymore, but I hated that. And I was always so against it, even when people were just trying to be polite. And I see age, someone being treated differently because of their age is kind of the same thing. It's if she asks, of course, I'm going to help her, but she's never asked for help. She's just wants to be looked at the same as everyone else. The thing that I constantly have to do like a double take that spins me out is when we talk about the past, and when I see her in photos or in like video material archive from like 1970, and she's my age now, you know, and I'm like, holy shit, like you were there for all of this stuff, and here you are right now in front of me as my friend that just seems like all my other friends, but you have this like you carry this like history that, and it just and because she's so adaptable, you know, she doesn't seem like an old person in any stretch of the imagination. So that constantly spins me out. Like, how can you be so, yeah, so enthusiastic about life, having lived so much life? You know, it's like it's really that's I think at the core of why this story is so fascinating to so many people. It's just like inspiring, you know.
Selena, you probably saw this firsthand too. It's the artist's response when Martha shoots their photo. It feels like it's like this rite of passage that like
Yeah.
I assume that never got old even when you were filming her in action. Like the enthusiasm. It's almost like the artists want to put on a show for her in a way, but also like try to be natural. And that's the part that I always think it's like, wow, I'm actually watching like this like rite of passage happen in front of me whenever I've seen her shoot a photo of somebody. And like I'm sure you had so many moments with artists that were part of that naturally became part of the film who were going through that every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the bond that they share is it's not just about one person to another. It's like yeah, like I think I think that most people know that if Martha's taking photographs of you, those photos are going somewhere that's going to matter in the long term, you know, like, and that you're becoming part of that kind of like historical dialogue that she's like, or that record that she's been working on for the last like since the beginning, you know. And that's I think what, and also I think that's one kind of reaction that I see people have to her. The other one is just that thing of gratitude, like especially graffiti writers. Like, I mean, I've had guys like in their 50, you know, they're in their 40s or 50s, and you see them at these events, and they come up and they're like, they like pointed her and they're like, if it wasn't for you, like you changed my life, like thank you so much, you know. And you took those photos that made that book that changed the course of my life, you know. And that's huge. Like that's I think more so than just being photographed by her. And yeah, that's pretty unique, her and Henry. So
How does, and this is probably more so a question for her rather than yourself, but as from your perspective, how does she deal with the celebrity element? Because it's not like what she set out to do, but it kind of comes as part of the package, and you don't really get a say in it. And it's you know, like you said, the reactions are mad. How does she deal with it?
I mean, watch the documentary. We touch on it in the
Yeah,
documentary.
okay.
But no, I think that I mean, photographers are usually like people who observe. They don't like to be observed, um, and I mean that I think is one thing. That's a kind of a minor concern. I think the bigger concern for her is that it just gets in the way. Like she just, you know, she doesn't come to events, or she didn't go to Urban Nation to be celebrity, you know, graffiti photographer Martha Cooper. She went to take photos. And every time somebody stops her to tell their story, she's missing out on a photo. And that drives her bonkers. Like she just like, and she's so lovely to everyone and she's patient, but um, she just wants to keep going. Like she's just not someone who gets anything out of being recognized, or, you know, I don't think she has that kind of ego about it at all. So yeah, but she's pretty, like, I'm impressed with how graciously she handles it most of the time.
I expect that there's a couple of slips in there.
Yeah, well, she's human, you know. And when you're with her, often like you see like, I mean, that story, that thing of, oh, I got a copy of Subway Art when I was 13, and I studied it, and I started doing graffiti, and I've heard that story hundreds of times just being with her. So imagine how many times she's heard it over the years. It's like it must be, yeah. And maybe that's what propels her forward, because I know that I've had work that I've done in the past that a lot of people have wanted to talk to me about, and it's kind of scared me because I'm like, fuck, is this the thing that I'm going to always be remembered for? Like, is this it? Like, or am I like, I have to do something even better now, otherwise I'm just going to be that girl that did that thing.
I wanted to talk about Limitless at some point. But before we do, I want to ask you, I see a lot of similarities between you and Martha and as an outsider and kind of in your path and your goals and what you're trying to do. What are your biggest differences?
Biggest differences. I mean, well, I think that everything has changed, like from like the seminal years of Martha's career. Like, no one gets to be like that. What's the right word? Like, I mean, she was the only one doing it when her and Henry were the only ones doing it when they were doing it. And no one's ever going to get that chance again to be the only one, because, that's not the world we live in anymore. But also she's just like so consistent, and I think I'm not consistent. I've kind of jumped all over the place with what I've been pursuing and why, and she's just been doing the exact same thing and looking for the same type of photographs since the 60s, and that's kind of part of her magic, is that she has this consistency. And like the pictures that she took that were in subway art, like, didn't actually come to be properly recognized and appreciated for like 20 years, and I don't know how that felt or how that worked, or that's not something that I see happening in my career. I think everything now is so instantaneous. So and also it was just like so much harder to get your work out there and to be taken seriously when she was doing it, whereas now I think it is like quite a bit easier. So I wouldn't want to compare myself to her in any way. Like, I think she's on another level, honestly.
Well, okay, because I have to leave here in like 2 minutes, and I really apologize. The question I wanted to ask you is, you were alluding to it just then, this idea of, in the instantaneous world that we live in now, like doing like a feature-length documentary, it takes this kind of patience that we're kind of lacking in, and like you as a filmmaker too. It's like it's kind of a unique jump to like, okay, I'm gonna use this subject, and this is the one I'm gonna make the feature length on. Did you have like a little bit of like, I don't know if it's not struggle is not the right word, but did you have like a little bit of kind of hesitation, like, I'm gonna do a feature length in this day and age when people aren't necessarily, they're doing more episodic kind of viewing? Was that kind of like a daunting task to be like, okay, I'm going to do a full length, one subject, here we go?
It's definitely something I thought about, but I'm actually really happy with that decision, as much as it kind of happened by accident. In hindsight, the work that I was doing beforehand, I mean, I've always loved like big impossible projects. I really get a kick out of like setting my sights on something and just like making it work, even if it shouldn't. But I think that that format of like, I mean, I was doing a lot of going to festivals and making like 1 or 2 minute videos, or even Instagram videos, and I just think that market is kind of becoming saturated. It's becoming very, very easy for anybody to make their own content of that sort, and also I just wasn't finding it to be a challenge. I was kind of having this existential crisis of like, why are we all doing this? Like, what's the point of all of this stuff that we're putting so much effort into? And for like, I've really enjoyed slowing down and going deeper into something, and the challenge of doing that. And also, I think that there will be a shift, or there already is a shift towards people sort of yearning for more meaningful stories, because information is just so cheap and accessible these days that, I know for one, like, I scroll Instagram and I'm just like, I just don't even look at what I'm looking at, because it's just like, there's just so much of it, so that's something that I'm happy to have done. And yeah, it takes a long time, but it also has hopefully like a life beyond the week after it's made, so it's kind of scalable relative to, yeah.
So in conclusion, in Evan's conclusion in this conversation, buy print magazines and watch feature-length documentaries. No, seriously, guys, thank you so much. I'm sorry I have to run. Selina, awesome. Doug, finish it off, buddy.
All right, I'll speak to you tomorrow.
See you soon.
Yeah, bye. See ya.
Why don't we pull it back right to the start? Because I know a lot of your work, but I don't really know you or your story. You're from Brisbane?
Yes, I'm from
We had
Brisbane.
this is funny because we had a listener on this a couple of weeks ago who described Brisbane as the arse end of nothing, I think it was, to paraphrase him, something to that degree at least. Does that sort of resonate true to your experience of Brisbane?
Yeah. Brisbane is was. I mean, I don't want to talk shit on Brisbane because it's where I grew up, and I haven't been back there properly for maybe like 4 or 5 years, so maybe it's changed. But growing up in Brisbane, it's a pretty small town. It's like the 3rd largest city in Australia, and just culturally, Queensland has, for some reason, a bit of a reputation of being less open-minded and less developed culturally as other places in Australia. Who knows why? And it was just that kind of, like suburban nothingness type of place to grow up. And but strangely, a lot of people that I still work with now are from my hometown. Like Fintan McGee grew up in Brisbane. We've known each other since we were 18. Guido Van Helten. These are all street artists for anyone that doesn't know them. Anthony Lister, graffiti artist Soffles is from Brisbane as well. So it weirdly like fostered a lot of like art careers and creative careers. Like, I mean, I have friends in bands that have done really well, and maybe because it was so boring, like, and there wasn't so much trouble to get into, we all like found creative outlets. I don't know.
It becomes a natural response to your surrounding.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was this building in Brisbane for like that there was these friends of mine that were a little bit older than me that somehow scammed this situation where there was this kind of wealthy lady who had bought this like old furniture warehouse type thing in Brisbane. And she'd said, "Oh, I just want it to be filled with artists, I'll give you cheap rent. I just want it to be filled with artists." And next thing, there's like graffiti writers living on one floor, and there's like, a photo studio and a little record store, but it was like like a complete mess, but like an awesome mess. It was just we just like ran wild in this place, and so many of those people that I just mentioned like congregated there, and I guess it was like a little petri dish of creativity. So.
What was she happy with the way that it panned out?
It lasted for a few years. It lasted for like 2 or 3 years.
That's not bad.
Yeah. No, I guess I never saw her or anything, so I guess she was okay with it. But yeah, it was like pretty wild.
What was your entry point into this? I find most of the time with like journalists, with photographers, with filmmakers, most of them have a sort of, they're drawn to the scene, but they don't paint or they can't paint, and then they figure out how they participate. And I can definitely say that that's true for me. What was your entry point into this?
My entry point into like, I guess into like us talking right now was definitely graffiti. And in my early 20s, I met Soffles. Soffles is a graffiti writer from Brisbane, and the guys from his crew, which was a crew called DTS. And when I met them, they were like the most sort of respected, or one of the most respected kind of crews in Australia, and they were doing like these amazing productions and like painting trains, and like that I like were just amazing to me. And I think that I'd already been like shooting a little bit and taking photos, and I was like dabbling in graphic design, and I just like immediately recognized that for me to like attempt to like try and paint with these guys, or like like I'm gonna start doing graffiti, like would have just been really embarrassing for me because I'd never done it before. I hadn't had that like upbringing or that experience, and I just didn't want to be one of those people that just like jumps on the bandwagon. And I just never like. Actually, that's not true. I painted a piece once.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's definitely got to be something in there.
And so it was Luke Sherlaw, who's an amazing photographer, and he was the marketing manager of Ironlac for years and years and years, because Ironlac is also from Brisbane. And I was working for Luke, and I was making videos for Luke, and Luke would always say things to me like, like you get it, Selena, but you'll never really get it because you're not a writer. You have to be a writer to get it. And I was like, come on, dude. Like, I sit here for hours and hours watching all this footage. I get it. Like, I know what you're talking about. And he's like, no, you don't get it. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. And so I got like a bag of paint and went out one night by myself. And I was like, I'm going to do this just so I can tell Luke that I know what he's talking about. And I like figured out all the caps, and I like painted some throw up on the side of a highway. And it was really fun and kind of terrifying. And then I was like sucked in. I did it.
Did you pick a name?
I can't remember.
Oh, that's such a lie. You definitely can. That is 100% a lie.
Like it was definitely not the beginnings of a career. It was just I was just being stubborn.
Is it still there?
I have no idea. It's in Adelaide, so
Okay.
let's hope not. But yeah. So I just knew that it wasn't really for me, and I also just loved taking pictures. Like it was really, I think I needed a subject as much as they needed someone to document their work, and so it was perfect.
It's always been a kind of like a very mutually beneficial relationship between the two, because it's like, you could make the best song in the world, but if nobody gets to hear it, then then it doesn't matter. So, you could paint the best piece in the world, but if nobody gets to see it, then it's not the same. And so you kind of touched on Limitless, and I think a lot of people, for just a lot of people within the scene, that would have been the first time that they had seen your work, because that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, first of all, did you ever expect it to be that big? And secondly, what was it about that kind of gave you that feeling of, this is what I'm going to be remembered for?
Yeah. So as far as did I think that it was going to be that huge? Like absolutely not. There was one that we'd made beforehand. So I went on a trip to Europe with Soffles, and we made this like someone had mentioned this hyperlapse thing to me, and we were in Portugal and just like hanging out one night, and I googled it just out of curiosity, and we saw it, and we were like, wow, like we got to try this. And the next day we tried it, and then like the day after that we made this video, and it was like in this abandoned building in Portugal. And at that point I'd been making videos with Ironlac for a year or two, and every video would get like 50,000 views. Like it would be like Pose and Ewok in LA one week, and then Wani in Italy the next week, and they'd either send footage to Ironlac, or someone from Ironlac would go and shoot it, and they'd give me the hard drive, and I was the one that sat in my bedroom and edited it, which was such a great way to start and to learn, because there was so much motivation to do well, because there was already an audience there, and that doesn't happen to most people. I was very lucky. And so I was getting like consistently 50,000 views like per video, and we put out that first one, and it got 700,000 views, and we were like, oh my fucking god, how the fuck does a video get that many views? That's insane. We were so proud of ourselves and so amazed, and I think kind of everyone in like the graph world watched that one, but it was not a big deal at all. And then we, like a few months later, we were like, we're never going to top that. Like, we're never going to top that. And we're never going to find anywhere in Australia to do a video like this. And then I freakishly got this building somehow. It was a long story, but we got this building. We were like, fuck it, let's do another one. Let's see if we can top the last one. And we weren't sure if it was going to do as well. And it got 12 million views. I think it got 12 million views in like 2 or 3 days. So.
Yeah. I was going to say it got to 12 million, but it did that very, very quickly.
Yeah. It was total carnival. It was crazy.
I saw a photo of you where you were doing that. You had like a really customized sort of tripod with wheels and a little trolley. What was that setup?
Yeah, it was just like, because the hyperlapse thing is basically you put your tripod down, you take a photo, you move it one inch, take another photo, move it, take another photo. And we did that for 10 days straight, for like 8 hours a day for 10 days. So I rigged up this little, I went to like Bunnings, like the hardware store, and got like a little, wheelie thing, which I sat on. And then I had like wheels for my tripod, so I didn't have to like drag it across the floor, because the last video, which was only 3 days, had like worn all the rubber off the bottom of my tripod, and like it was just metal like poking out the bottom. So it was just like a necessity thing. It wasn't that fancy or anything.
Are you a sort of DIY shooter in that respect? Are you a kind of like, I'll just make something out of this and figure out how to get this shot?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of people thought that this was like this big production with like a crew and like motion control, and it was literally just like three people that we have this thing called council cleanup in Australia, where they just like you can just drop off all your junk on the side of the road and the council picks it up like once a year. And whenever it's council cleanup, you can like drive around and find shit. And that was like all the props in the movie were like shit that we found on the side of the road. And it was just like us, like, just I think at the time I had a job making videos for like corporate videos for like the mining industry. We weren't career anything. We were just like a couple of like just kind of basically unemployed artists just fucking around. So yeah, it was the most like basic setup. But I love that DIY stuff. I think it's good to yeah. What's the necessity breeds invention, or whatever the thing is? Yeah.
Did you have a sort of pressure within yourself then, or from other people? Because when you do something like that, then the natural instinct is to make the sequel. So you go out and you take that formula and then you make it even bigger. Was that kind of something that you had to internally say, actually, I have to push back on this and go a different direction for my next production? Or did you actually do something that went bigger?
Yeah, there was definitely like a period where me and Soffles and Finton, who's also in the video, and Trav and Trees, all of us that were in the video, were like, oh, what do we get? We have to do another one, and we really racked our brains to try and think of how we could like top it, and we probably could have if we hadn't all gotten so busy, because that video really took my career to another level. Like I got contacted by agencies in London and Paris and New York, and I started doing ads and started traveling a lot, and it just became impossible for us to coordinate our schedules. And then at some point I was like, you know what, maybe I don't need to do another one of those, like maybe it'll be kind of embarrassing if we try and do another one and it's not as good. Like, actually, that's not true. We did do another one. We did another one in Tahiti.
Yeah.
But we did it in 48 hours, and it was kind of silly because
The Castaway.
yeah, it was just not
Yeah.
enough time, and we went to this island, and we did it like we got there and we basically just worked through for like 2 days without sleeping, and yeah, that was not easy. And we put it out and everyone loved it, but it wasn't like it wasn't a big deal. So I was like, cool. Like I think the one the Limitless was enough. Like I think that's cool. Now we can move on, So, and that's when I started trying to do more like documentaries and tell stories rather than just doing visual stuff. So
That completely makes sense. Now that you've done Martha, do you think you're going to go into the other side again, or are you very much kind of drawn towards the storytelling rather than the sort of bells and whistles?
I don't know. I don't know. This is the problem, like how I said before about consistency. Like I I mean, I probably could have made like a really nice career for myself just doing like hyperlapse videos, and probably could have been quite comfortable in that world for like quite a long time if I'd just been okay with that. But I've just whenever I've done something, I just want to do something else, and I honestly don't know how I'll feel at the end of this project. I already have, people in the film industry being like, "What's the next one going to be?" Because it's very easy once you get a documentary up. If it does well, it's easy to get the next one up. And I've kind of had the advice that as soon as you finish this, like have the next idea ready, because you'll be in touch with distributors, and like the sooner the better. But I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know what's going to happen. So
Do you get that kind of pressure of like the sophomore album? You've got your entire life to make your first album, you drop it, and then it's like suddenly everyone wants your next big thing. Is that a pressure that you feel?
um yeah, a little bit, but I think I felt that much more after the Limitless project, just because it was so successful and kind of out of nowhere. Whereas now I can sort of say, okay, I've been working as a filmmaker for 5 years, making a living. So that's okay. Like, I know that it's not like anything I do now is kind of make or break. I'll always have opportunities to make films, and that's what's important. And I had this really eye-opening conversation recently with a friend of mine, Omar Musa. He's an amazing author, screenwriter, poet, musician, someone that I really admire and who's doing extremely well. And I went to his show. He was here for Sydney Festival, sorry. And we shared a cab, and I was like doing this thing that we all do of like, so what's next? Like strategizing with him, because that's the way that I always think about my life, you know. And he was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "So what are you gonna do next to get like where are you headed, you know?" And he was like, "Dude, like I'm good." Like he's like, "This is what I do, like, and I'll just keep doing what I do, and people will either, you know, help me market it, and things will happen, or they won't. But like I don't think about my life that way." And I was like, "Fuck, like maybe he's right. Like maybe we shouldn't be so focused on this stuff, you know." And I found that after that, like I realized that everyone that I talk to them like that, as if, you know, don't be happy with what you have right now. You got to already be looking for the next thing, because, and it's like this never-ending ladder that just like goes off into the distance. But like at some point, you know, you can't keep thinking like that. So I think that the way that I'm thinking now is I'm going to be really proud to have done this project, and then I'm going to take a few weeks off and see what opportunities come up, and how I'm feeling, and just focus more on what's going to be fulfilling and challenging for me personally, rather than what's going to make me more money or get me more, you know, whatever. Like, just, yeah, I'm trying to think differently about it, I guess. um but yeah, I'd love to make another documentary, but just they're hard work, so I just don't want to just dive straight into another one, you know. So
What's the hardest part of making a feature length?
oh
Because it's a big jump.
yeah, I think, well, I don't know, because I've only done this one, but I think that I think the hardest part is finding the right story, for sure, which I completely fluked. Like, I got so lucky with Martha. Like, that was like just begging to be made, that documentary. It was just, you know, everything about it was easy. Like, and I think finding another story as perfect as Martha's story is going to be very difficult. Um, Apart from finding the right story, the part when you know, like you have this idea of the person or the story, you go out, you start shooting, and then you come back and you've got all this stuff, and then you have to kind of wrangle it into a cohesive narrative. And for me, that was just like so many weeks and months of just like mind-bending, back-breaking work, because I'd never went to film school. Like I'd never, like my producer bought me a textbook on screenwriting and was like, I think you should read this, because I had no idea how to do it, you know, and so I had to kind of learn as I was going. Um, I don't know, like I've asked people that have done it more than once, like, is it easier the second time? And they say in some ways yes, but then in other ways it'll be more difficult. um, Learning to coordinate a crew, you know, going from someone who's done everything by myself to I now have a team of about 10 people. I mean, the entire crew of this documentary has been closer to 20. Um, so having to articulate what you want to 20 different people is very
That's a big
difficult.
jump.
So
Because I mean, it is, you know, as a sort of as a freelance, you know, videographer, a director, whatever it is, you know, it's you and your subject or your subjects. And what did you learn anything about yourself when you didn't know when you took on that team?
oh my God, so many things. It's really been like a like transformative experience. It's been like a boot camp in so many ways. Like the things that I used to think were difficult before I started this now just seem kind of normal. Like um, I learned about myself. Oh, okay. So I mean, maybe a good way to say it is that, and this was like another one of these light bulb moments, which didn't happen on this project, but it's become more and more true on this project. Oh, sorry, I think is that like I was working on this ad, and this assistant director I was working with was like a really big ad. I'd never done one that big before, and I was like, am I doing okay? Like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing good enough. And and he was like, Selina, like no one cares like how the ad's going to turn out, because that's your job. Like all people want is for you to just make a decision. Just make a decision, any decision. And everyone that's working like in this crew has their job that they're responsible for, and all they want is the information that they need to do their job. And I don't know if that sounds obvious, but it was a real light bulb to me. I was like, oh, it's just that. Like, just make a decision. It's so easy. And it's not like no one's observing you. No one cares as much about it as you do. They just want a leader. They just want someone to be the one to say, we're going this way, and then then they're going to do their part. And I think that it's not just about having confidence, but it's about like, yeah, like owning that role, and not having fear about it, but just being like, this is my job. And yeah, no one's you just can't be self-conscious. No one's like that concerned with your movie as much as you are. Like all they're concerned with is, are you able to make a decision? How quickly can you make that decision? And how clearly can you communicate what I'm supposed to do today? And that's been something that's gotten easier for sure.
A kind of pragmatic way of looking at your role.
Yeah, well, it helps, because I think, when you're inexperienced and you start out, you really like think that the world is like hinging on your like creative vision, and oh my God, and everyone's like judging you and wondering if you're good enough, and that's not it. It's like if you got that job, you're there, just fucking do your job. Like it's not the end of the world. It's not rocket science. It's not, because like when you're a creative person, like you really do hold your work like in that regard, but not everybody takes it that seriously. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
What will you be doing after the sort of the launch, the premiere, once it's gone out into the world? Martha is live. Are you gonna hide away from absolutely everything, or will you be like refreshing absolutely every single article to see comments and what people have said? What kind of position will you be taking?
I don't know. I like to think that I won't read comments, but I mean, I think we all do that. We're all human. But you do that for a few days and then you're like, oh well, anyway, move on. I'm gonna be in New York. I've got a boyfriend in New York that has been extremely, incredibly patient in throughout this. I'm here in Australia and he's in New York, so I'm just gonna go and hang out with him and just like be a normal human for a month. And yeah, and then there's like a few film festivals and stuff. So I like, yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes, some days I'm like, when this is over, I'm just gonna sit on the couch and watch Game of Thrones for 3 months, and no, I'm not gonna talk to anyone. And then other days I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could do that project, or I wonder if I'll have time to, do that one. So who knows? We'll see.
Can you give me the important stuff, the plug? When can we the good people of Earth see the film that we all really really want to see?
Yeah, so I can't answer it fully yet, but what I can say is that the film is premiering at Tribeca Film Festival in New York. There's 3 screenings at the moment. So there's one on the 25th of April, one on the 26th of April, and then one on the 1st of May. There's tickets which will go on sale on the 26th of this month. They're very, very limited. So anyone in New York, I really hope that they can get a ticket and come along to that. And then, we'll be hopefully at a bunch of other film festivals this year. None that I can say yet.
Oh, that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for the scoop.
That's the problem with features, is that you can't just like post it online and be like, yeah, watch it. So we expect that it'll be out for the public, or there'll be like a public premiere later this year. I mean, I would like sooner rather than later, but I'd say definitely by the end of this year it'll be available mostly everywhere. So depends on how it goes at the festival. So
I'm sure it will be a massive, massive hit.
thank you. Are you going to come and see it?
I actually I am gonna be in New York then. So I might I think I'm gonna I was out by a day, but I might see if I can just push it in a day, see if we can get a ticket.
Yeah,
I'll be
go
there.
come.
Yeah, I mean, look, what you know, it's as you said at the start, it's a story that needs to be told. You know, she has, you've seen the reaction. You know more than anyone. People respect Martha so much, and I fully believe she was in safe hands, with you behind the helm. So yeah, really, really looking forward to it.
It's a big responsibility, I feel very, very lucky, especially like coming from the suburbs of Brisbane to be telling a story about New York and about graffiti and telling the stories of all the people that were there, in the 70s and 80s. And it's an honor, really, and it's a huge responsibility. And I really hope that people are happy with what I've done. Um, I don't take it lightly at all. So thank you, Martha, and everyone who gave me their time, really, 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 for trusting me with it. So